All right, I see.
Hello, everybody. My name is Seloane. I'm the executive director of Mbewu. Welcome to today's Soapbox. I'm just going to introduce today's speakers. Sorry for that little bit of a bump there in the screen. We have Ntsako Risenga, who is a candidate attorney at Kuzane Herzog and Hurok Attorneys. He graduated from the University of Pretoria with a BCom in law, and he is from Soshanguve, which is a township in Pretoria. He's incredibly keen and interested in relationships between the law and the law of the ghetto. So, welcome to today's topic. Today's topic is going to be dealing mainly with the promotion of street law in an attempt to increase or promote a quality approach to access to justice. So, Ntsako, welcome to today's Soapbox.
Thank you, Tsepo.
All right, Ntsako, you're very interested and you're incredibly interested in what is perceivably the relationship between the law and the law of the ghetto. Can you explain that a bit for us?
All right. Basically, what this concept came from while I was doing my dissertation, and it's essentially the apparent contradiction or tension between
All right, we seem to have lost Ntsako there for a second. While we try and get Ntsako back onto the screen, I just want to explain the purpose of what today's discussion is about. You may have seen and heard from previous discussions that we've had on the soapbox. Today's discussion centers primarily around the topic of street law. What street law is how we, or candidate attorneys, attorneys at law, are able to go into communities and in those communities are able to decipher the law, what the law is not, and are able to break down the law in a way that people who are from a community who would otherwise have never have been able to benefit from the law are able to gain access to the law. Section 34 of our Constitution speaks about access to the courts. Section 35 speaks about access to justice in terms of criminal proceedings. Today's discussion centers around access to justice or access to the courts in terms of Section 34 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. So while we try and get Ntsako back onto the call, we're going to try and also get Vincent Seloane, who is an attorney at law. He owns his own
sorry.
attorney's company. And okay, we have Ntsako back on the discussion right now. So I'm going to
Sorry.
cross right back to Ntsako just so that we can
Yes.
begin to divulge and break down the discussion around street law. But just in summary of what the discussion today is going to be around, and again, we'll try and get Vincent Seloane back onto today's discussion. It is about breaking down the law. It is about bringing the law back to people who the law describes as indigent, or as colloquial people would describe them as poor people. So, Ntsako, we're going to get back to you, just so that you can break down to us what you mean about your appreciation of what the law and the law of the ghetto is. So let's just get back to you on that discussion.
All right. So as I was saying, with the example of an accident or car crash inside a township, you find that when two individuals are both from a township and there's an accident, the tendency is that lawyers tend to not get involved. I mean, it's always for some reason resolved in an amicable manner, whereby X and Y will say, okay, no, it's fine, we'll sort it out, don't worry, we're not going to involve a third party. But however, take X for example, and then put him into a situation where X is in a car crash in a town, for example, not a township, just a town. You find that immediately lawyers are signed up. You find that immediately that outside parties are signed up. And clearly that now points out to a specific legality that exists within townships as compared to a legality that exists outside of townships. And that is the key relationship that I think sort of exists and should definitely speak to this concept of street law by making the law entirely of society practical to the ordinary man on the street.
All right. I mean, I agree. I agree with that. What we have learned over the last year and a couple of months with Mbewu has been that we get a bunch of advocates, we get a bunch of legal practitioners to help us when we do legal workshops. And they tend to come and speak legalese. You understand what legalese is?
Yeah.
So what we get from the feedback that we get from our surveys at the end is that people would like for us to explain the law in terms that they understand. So
Exactly. So
it's a question about divulging the concept of legality and what legality is. So let's ask you about how you would describe legality, and on top of that, let's discuss how legality would fit in a system that would accommodate indigent people or people who are not learned in the law. And I'm speaking specifically now to people who come from poor environments, people who come from townships, people who would never have had access to the law but for a legal clinic. So let's discuss how you would see legality in that form.
I mean, I think let's firstly try and break down this concept of legality. I think it's quite essential to this conversation because, I mean, at the end of the day, street law has to do with the legality or the law precepts. So legality, for example, for me personally, from the research that I've done, legality is essentially a system of rules and norms that exist amongst the community, where communities can actually agree or disagree, whether tacitly or even expressly, to norms that function, and that says, you know, when you all can say, well, yeah, that is right or that is wrong. I think legality speaks more specifically to a sense of justice or a sense of understanding, of saying these rules is this is what's going to happen, X and Y is going to feed off into X. I don't know if I'm making sense like that. And
I do.
sort
I'm
of
just going to stop you just for a second there. Your screen is freezing just a little. So let's just try and get your screen to come back to normal. But I'm just going to pick up from this point of view. What we found over the last couple of months is that people are afraid of engaging the law. Street law came to South Africa. Street law is not a South African creation. Street law actually came from the United States and from the UK. And how it came to South Africa around about 2003, 2004 through the University of KwaZulu-Natal. We've been able to see that more young people, more law students have been encouraged to engage in street law. When the project started, it started at all the major universities, the University of Pretoria, University of Witwatersrand, Stellenbosch, Scorpies, University of Cape Town. So you had a lot of these universities coming together, utilizing what we call street law, which was later turned or communicated to students as community law. And currently, not all the universities in the country are using or utilizing the platform for street law. In 2008, there was a paper that was written by the Law Reform Commission that was trying to encourage law students to take up compulsory community service or compulsory public service commitments as part of their qualification for the candidate attorney program. You've read something along those lines. The program hasn't come together. Currently, it started in in Cape Town, the Law Society in the Western Cape, where they started the process where they would encourage attorneys or candidate attorneys to commit 24 hours of legal service. This has now gone on to every other society in the country. Let me just talk about you at the law firm that you are at right now. Do the candidate attorneys and do the attorneys commit to the 24 hours of free pro bono legal services a year? Let's answer that question.
Not from what I know. I mean, from where I'm standing, that is not necessarily a policy that's been tabled or a policy that's been discussed, you know? So, plain and simple, no.
So how do we change that? How do we change the system where not just law societies, but legal practitioners take free or pro bono legal services seriously? There are two arguments for this. The first argument is that practitioners who've been around for many years, directors and partners, are running very big practices and they don't have time. The contra-argument is that candidate attorneys and young attorneys are trying to build a name for themselves and they equally don't have time. What comes out as a corollary is that we have what we call a second system of justice where people who could have benefited from your services cannot. The Legal Reform Commission, the legal aid clinics, and other NGOs who provide legal services are inundated with queries, are inundated with people who need legal services. And we're looking to the private sector. We're looking to university students. We're looking to institutions of law to be able to take this conversation forward. What I want to know from you is there any kind, what is your thoughts about that? Let me rather ask you that. What is your thoughts about engaging or encouraging law students, particularly fourth-year law students who are just about to go into practice, in engaging in community law or street law?
Well, I think what the problem is that with essentially the rejection of the law, I think it's more of that, is that at the end of the day, if we look at it, the legal system that we have in South Africa that's predominant, the common law, so to say, has been a form of an imposed system. And I think if we can initially get rid of that mentality that, look, the system is not foreign, the system is not alien. I'm talking from practicality right now. That practically speaking, a number of people, the moment you speak, especially from impoverished areas, the moment you mention legal concepts, it becomes a more of a, oh, this is bad news, or oh, this is something that is not for us, you know. And I think maybe that's where it starts, because at the end of the day, a lot of these people are coming from communities that are made to believe that the law is for the rich and for the elite. So to answer your question in short, it's simply saying, I think it's not a case of getting candidate attorneys to go there. It's a case of getting people to open up platforms in the townships, in the impoverished areas, to say, look, we need the law, and the law is actually not a bad thing. So it's more changing the perception of the law to the ordinary man on the street. You know, the law has been seen as something that is reserved for the elite, reserved for the public sector. And I hear what you say about, let's try and engage the private sector to participate in concepts of street law. But then again, I mean, does it make sense for me as a candidate attorney to go into a township or to go to a place where I'm going to be perceived as hostile?
I mean, okay, I hear that point of view. We actually have an email from Seloane Mufokeng, SeloaneM@gmail.com. He sent in a question earlier on today for today's discussion. Her email reads that her father worked for Adcock Ingram.
Yes.
This is in the late 80s, 1988. He worked for Adcock Ingram for about 20 years. Adcock in 1988 offered them a house, and the house was to be given to them in their name, and he just needed to pay the house over a period in time. He had a stop order. The father had a stop order, but after the merger, the company that had taken over the bank in 1988 was NCB, which later changed to Nedbank after a merger between NCB and Nedbank. And they found out 3 years ago that the house had now belonged to Nedbank. The agents at the time came to Seloane's house, and this is only last year now. This is 2014. Seloane and her two sisters and her father were arrested. She is a female. She's a 23, and I'm lying to you, she's a 27-year-old female, and she was arrested and detained at the Sun City prison. Her father was detained at the Boksburg prison. She only came back out 2 months ago, and her mother had passed away this past week, Sunday, due to complications. She was very stressed over the situation. Seloane says that they went back to Nedbank to go and try and find out what is going on with the situation, but Nedbank says that they have no records of the payment of the father over the last 25 years that he had been paying the house over. And they were detained. She had applied for a job at Nedbank and was let off from her contract because she has a criminal record. Seloane wrote into Mbewu to ask for help. And I wanted to pose this question to someone like you who would know about what an interpleader is. NCR, the bank, merged with Nedbank, and Nedbank has now got the records of the house, but they said that the house belongs to them. She writes in the email that the Boksburg magistrate said that the only way that they would be able to be released from custody is if they surrendered the keys to the house, which they eventually did. They were held in Sun City for 2 years. What I want to know is, would Cloney have been able to get help if she had money? Of course she would have. Okay, it's a bit of a rhetorical question. But now, Cloney Mofokeng has lost a job. Her father is currently unemployed. Her mother has passed away in the past weekend because she could not have access to the law. And I'm asking, this is a very real situation. This is cloneyM@gmail.com, who sent us an email after finding out about today's Soapbox. Now, you say you don't want to be hostile when you go into a community, but this is a real life situation where these people have been kicked out of their house. And they have to live in a back room in Vosloorus in the East Rand because their house has been taken away. They don't have access to their records, and no one is willing to come in to assist them. So are you fair, if I can ask you, to say that, is it fair for you to go into a township or go into an environment where you're going to seem hostile? You have access to facilities that these people do not have. There are many people like Cloney out there who do not have access to legal justice, who do not have access to the court. Is that fair for you to say that you don't want to be hostile?
Well, look, I think you're missing my point here, and I hear Tony's story. And from what I've understood is that legal cases are not always as simple as always clear cut as they've been put out. I mean, we don't understand the background of this whole story, and for me to now go into the merits of this case would be a bit not prudent. With that being said, it's not. I think what I was trying to point out to you is that at the end of the day, the perceived image is not that the law in entirety is friendly. That's what the general perception we get from a township is that the moment you interact and you introduce yourself as a lawyer, you are not seen as someone who's here to help, but rather seen someone as either to take or to oppress. And I think even Cloney, speaking from what I've interacted with people, the moment they see lawyers or lawyers' papers, they get defensive because it's a foreign concept. Look, the issue of Cloney is real. The issue of Cloney is very, how can I put it? I can't say unfair because I don't know the merits of the case, but it's a real situation that a number of people are facing. I'm not sure about your number of imprisonment because I mean, from what I'm saying, it's probably a default judgment that's been granted against the father, and I don't understand how they both ended up spending 2 years in the house. Again, 2 years in prison. So again,
no, it's 2 weeks. It was
2 weeks.
It was 2 weeks. I think, and what I want to say to you is these are the problems that everyday South Africans experience from legal practitioners. You speak about the merits of the case. You speak about not knowing certain things, but yet the Law Societies only prescribe 24 hours a year. Now it takes at least about 12 hours to preside or to represent someone or to look over someone's case. Now, if it's 24 hours a year, that equals 2 hours a month, and that's not enough to get someone like Cloney Mofokeng a chance. It's not enough to get someone like her an opportunity to get legal recourse. And that is why there are arguments that access to justice is only for the elite. It is only for those who can afford legal services and afford private legal practitioners like you. Because legal aid can't provide the quality of service. And that's why we speak about 2 tiers of legal representation. There is the moneyed legal representation where you work for hours to get someone legal recourse. And then there is a free legal aid service where there are 900 cases in a day and you don't have the time to dedicate the resources to dedicate proper expertise to a case. So, I mean, you're speaking from a private law firm perspective to say that, you can't look into the merits of the case, but I assure you, if Cloney had the money to pay you, you would definitely look into the merits of the case. You would care how long she stayed in prison, and you would care how much or whether it was a default judgment or not. You would even argue.
I think
extensively for her.
No. I think you are now falling prey to trying to paint us all with one brush. This is a simple issue, and I need to point out to you, is that, look, I don't know the merits of the case. Now, your question was merely, will I be able to assist? And I say, based on the merits of the case, it depends. At the end of the day, the law has processes that need to be followed. And that's as simple as that. That's one side of your argument. And I specifically said I cannot deal with it because I don't know the merits of the case. One. Two, you're now touching on the point of the different tiers of the legal aid in your private law firms. And it's a valid point, but I don't think it's a fair point. Valid as it might be, I don't think it's a fair point to then draw and paint every single law firm in that light. I mean, for example, from the top of my head, I know of a number of cases we are doing on a pro bono basis. Your question was, is it a policy for candidate attorneys? Not from what I know, but I know for a fact that there are cases that we do on a pro bono basis to assist people that walk in and need help. You need to understand
but is this information, Ntsako, sorry if I can interrupt you, is this information being communicated to the guy in the street? Is this information? Okay, cool. Let me get back to you for that. All right.
Now you need to understand that it's not an easy thing. You cannot just open your doors as a law firm and say, well, every single person who has a problem must walk through my door. That is going to be catastrophic, and you're going to end up even jeopardizing the people that are making you run the company. And there's interests that you need to balance out, you know. At the end of the day, this topic is essentially, can street law can street law assist in...
We're going to try and get Vincent on the line. So as you're speaking, I'm just going to try and get Vincent on the line with us, just to get a different perspective to what we're discussing. So I just want to find out from Vincent if he is available to get onto the call with us. Vincent, are you on your computer right now? Okay, Vincent, I'm going to send you an invite at your Africa Mine email address. Just hang on. We're going to try and get Vincent on the line. So we're going to cross back to Ntsako. Ntsako, if you could continue. All right, Ntsako. Okay, we seem to have a bit of an issue there with Ntsako. But what we were trying to discuss right now is the issue of access to the courts and the fact that ordinary South Africans don't have access to the courts. If we're going to speak that Section 34 of the Constitution allows for indigent people, for everyone to have access to the courts, is it then fair to only limit this to 24 hours a year for legal practitioners? Now, Ntsako is a legal practitioner right now, and he says that, you know, he doesn't have the time to look into the merits of the case, but this is exactly what happens to ordinary South Africans. They who have to wait in line at a legal clinic, and mind you, the legal clinics in our country only give access to people who earn below a certain threshold. Currently, it's around about 3,000 rands. So if you earn above 3,000 rands, you are unable to access legal justice in our country. So the question that we have today is that how does an ordinary South African who would otherwise never have been able to access the courts, if it had not been a legal, if it had not been a claim at the small claims court, would someone like Ntsako's law firm be able to interact with that person? Would someone like Ntsako's law firm, yes, they have a number of pro bono cases, but the ordinary South African does not have access to this information. And, you know, so many people out there let matters go. They let issues go because they don't have access to the facilities. The moment they think about an attorney, the moment they think about an advocate, they think money. And the first thing that Ntsako is going to say is going to fix fees first and tell the person that this is how much I have to pay. A second case came from Ntsako. We have Ntsako back on the line. So Ntsako, I'm going to give you another case from an email that we received last night at 7 o'clock. This is from Mbewu in Heidelberg in the East Rand. Mbewu says that he had, well, it's not him, he speaks on behalf of a friend of his who had acquired the services of an attorney. This attorney represented him during an opposed divorce matter. But after he ran up a bill of about 10,000 rands, the attorney said, I can no longer represent you because you owe me 10,000 rands. Mbewu then called Mbewu to ask if we could represent him or if we could offer advice on the situation. And I said, well, obviously the reason why the lawyer isn't representing you is possibly because you owe money. The match has been going on and dragging for over a year. Now he no longer has access to, he's so tired because papers have been flowing to and fro from both sides, and now the wife now has enough money to continue with the legal processes, but Ngaba's friend, he doesn't mention the friend, but Ngaba Nwala's friend doesn't have access to a lawyer. These are issues that ordinary South Africans face. You go into a divorce proceeding, you have the funds, the attorney realizes that he won't be able to continue with the case, and they drop you halfway. These are issues that ordinary South Africans face.
Well, and I keep saying again, you must be very careful to not paint everything as one brush. And I'm afraid that you're using very sweeping statements. And again, you know, when you get into practice, you get to realize there's a lot of interests that play at hand. You know, there's a lot of competing interests that play at hand, and it's all. And I agree with you. Everyone deserves access to the courts, and everyone deserves justice to be meted out. But however, you cannot then take one brush and paint everyone with it and say, well, because of lawyers want money, blah 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 blah, and so on. You don't know the preceding agreement before the divorce came into it. But in the same issue with the face situation, you don't know the merits of the case. It's so hard to give full-on advice without actually understanding the intricate details of the case. If you had maybe given me those emails before, or those queries, and I would have actually had a chance to read them and actually interrogate everything that you say. But at the moment, all I'm having is an email that you got, which I have no clue what's on it. I don't know the merits of the case. I don't know even the little nuances of the case which affect the case. Back to your point of saying that the law is for the rich and for the poor. That is, I don't really agree with that. You know, I really don't agree with that. It's a situation where you need to understand that if you now open the case to every single one else, there's interest that you need to make out. You cannot now bankrupt law firms saying that, well, everyone who has a problem must walk into the doors. Face it, not everyone has that mentality, and you're going to end up having a few lawyers having a lot of cases where other people are not interacting with. And I'm saying, bringing back to street law is a very credible way of meting our justice. But again, I say to you that there has to be a change in mindset, that a number of people in townships need to change the mentality of what the law is. And I'm talking from experience growing up in the township, that a number of people tend to think that the law is oppressive, prohibitive, and limited to the rich, as you say. But that needs to be changed. And street law is definitely a credible way of going through that.
And do you think, I mean, currently the University of South Africa had a street law program. It's running very fragile. In 2003, an organization was founded called Street Law, and they actually launched a website called streetlaw.org. They were lost in, they practiced actively in 2013 alone. And what we continuously find is that organizations pop up everywhere. We have the Law Reform Commission, we have the Legal Resources Council, but they don't focus on ordinary South Africans. Black Sash, for example, is an organization or an NGO that seems to support the indigent people, but they have their own political processes that the ordinary South African who is not involved in politics may not be able to access. So instead of fighting with you on this, I mean, we've already looked at Ngabangwala's email and Hloni Mofokeng's email. And while we wait for our tweets, and for those of you who are watching us live, you're more than welcome, if you are watching us from the Google Hangouts page, you're more than welcome to send us a question on the Q&A tab that appears on your left-hand side on your screen. You can click onto the Q&A tab and ask us a question. Your questions can come up to us live right now. If you're watching us live from YouTube, we encourage you to post a comment under this video link right now. And if you are also following us through Twitter, you can tweet us at Mbewu.org on Twitter. I'm speaking to Ntsako Risenga. He's a candidate attorney at a Pretoria law firm. I'm going to get the name right now. Ntsako, you need to help me.
It's fine.
All right. So Ntsako is a candidate attorney. We're going to read the name out in a second. And we are engaging on the topic of making street law work. So those of you who don't know what street law is where legal practitioners, whether they are law students, whether they are academics, anyone who is in legal practice is able to go out into a community, an indigent community, and be able to break down the law in a manner that those people in that community are able to understand. So this is about informing communities about their rights, informing the community about ways in which they can access the law. Just before we break back to Ntsako right now, an example of organizations like JUTA, for example, that promote and sponsor the Street Law Manual, which is a manual for both law students and non-law students. They just published a new book this year in 2015 in January, and it's basically a manual that's able to guide both learners and non-legal people into explaining the law to people. They cover a variety of issues from family law to the powers of the police to criminal law to consumer law and even access to housing. So these cover a variety of questions. So I'm just going to break now. We are joined by Vincent Seloane. Vincent is an attorney. Vincent is an attorney at law. So we're going to break to Vincent right now. Let's just greet Vincent. We weren't able to greet Vincent at the beginning, but thank you so much, Vincent, for joining us. So we're going to ask Vincent to please introduce himself and also what he does just before we can break into the flow of the conversation. So Vincent, hello.
Hi, how are you?
We're very well. Vincent, if you could just introduce yourself to the people watching us live right now.
Oh, my name is Vincent Seloane. I'm working at Seloane Vincent Attorneys. It's my law firm. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know what to say to you guys. Yeah.
All right, no, that's fine, Vincent. Thank you so much. The conversation as it goes right now is just about access to justice. Section 34 of the Constitution guarantees that everyone has a right to access the courts. A corollary right to this is access to justice. Vincent, you're an attorney at law. Does your law firm or does anyone that you communicate with or interact with in practice give pro bono service? The Law Society of the Northern Provinces compels legal practitioners to give 24 hours of pro bono service in a year. Do you, so this is a question specifically to you, and also a question to people that you know, do you and also people that you practice with dedicate 24 hours to legal services in a year?
Okay, let me tell you, my firm is willing to do that, but the problem is you find that we've got too much work to do in the office, and the law society, they are charging us a lot of fees. Subscription fees. So you can't be wasting time looking at pro bono when you have to make money so that you can pay them. You understand what I'm saying? So if maybe sometime if they were giving small law firms or new firms that have just started 2 years, 3 years to say, no, you know what guys, you don't have to pay us subscription fees for maybe 2 years. We want you to focus on pro bono for those particular 2 years. That would be fine. But now it's not easy to do that.
I mean, look, we have so many. Okay, we have a question from Facebook. This is from Milton Tiakhontaleng. I'm just going to read this question. Milton has asked a question on Facebook. Okay, so this is struggling now to load me onto Facebook. But I'm going to get back into the conversation. To everyone who is watching us live, you are more than welcome to communicate with us, like Tino and Tlaleng, who just sent us a question now. It's loading on my screen. While we're waiting for that comment to load for us, for those of you who are watching us now on Google Hangouts, you're more than welcome to access us through the Q&A tab. It appears on the left-hand side of your screen. You can post your questions there to us. I'm joined by Vincent Seloane, the owner and also the, what do you call yourself? Head partner, the owner of Vincent Seloane Attorneys.
The managing director.
What is it, sir?
The managing director or partner, yes.
He's the managing partner of Vincent Seloane Attorneys. I'm also joined by Ntsako Risenga, who is a candidate attorney at H.H. Herzog. Herzog Attorneys. Come again, say that again. So it's at Herzog and Horok, Kuzain, Herzog and Horok Attorneys. Yes, Ntsako?
I have to go, yeah?
You have to go in a moment. Okay, Ntsako, before you go, because you have to, you just have to sign out to the rest of our people. I just have a last question, well, not a question, but if you have any feedback to anyone who is watching this conversation right now, Is there anything that you'd like to say to any young person or anyone who's watching this feed right now before you go?
Look, I think a closing thought is that at the end of the day, we need to understand that the law is actually accessible to everyone. We need to make sure that we, one, demystify the concept of thinking that the law is one that we can just wash over something and things just get perfect. There's defects in the law. There's insufficiencies in the law. And I think you've pointed it out. There's a number of barriers to the law, Secondly, and I like what Vincent said, at the end of the day, law firms need to run, and I think I pointed it out to you. This is a business at the end of the day, and you can't have everyone, for example, walking into Pick and Pay and taking everything because, well, Pick and Pay wants to donate. There's interest that you need to run the business. There's rent. There's salaries that you need to pay. There's a number of issues that, at the end of the day, for the law to keep running, need to be made. It's all good and fair that the street law has to be applied. And it's an excellent concept. But however, there's a number of barriers to the issue. So one, just to summarize, one, the law is not one that can fix everything. Sometimes your case might be defective, and in fact, you might be wrong on the law. Two, pro bono is a good idea. However, it cannot be meted out without limitations. You cannot expect everyone who's anyone to walk into a law firm and expect to get help immediately. And lastly, it's been good having you being on here, but unfortunately I have to dash off. I have prior engagements that are actually due at 2.
You have money that you need to make. All right, thank you to Ntsako. We're going to say goodbye to Ntsako. To those of you who have any questions, we'll pose a question to Ntsako afterwards. Ntsako, thank you so much. You can catch Ntsako on the live recording of this the Soapbox. Ntsako, hope to see you again in the future, and thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, definitely, man. Cheers. Vincent, Tsepo.
Sure.
All right,
Sure.
goodbye.
Cheers.
We're going to continue the discussion right now with Vincent, who just joined us. We had some very interesting conversations with Ntsako. And I'm hoping to interrogate Vincent just a little bit more. Vincent, I think we have about 7 minutes left on the discussion. We could take it just a slight bit longer, but just an interest in you in what your view on street law is. There are many young people right now who are watching. We had 2 questions from Neba Nwala, who had a problem, a divorce problem there. And Ntsako also just delved into the facts here a little. And we also had Clonimo Fogeng, who had a problem of a criminal record where she and her family were detained for 2 weeks for failure to surrender the keys to their house that their father had been paying since 1988. We're going to go into our emails right now and try and see what emails have been sent to us to you. But while we're waiting for those to load, let's get back to you and hear what your viewpoint is on the concept of street law. What is your understanding of the concept of street law, and how would you describe how we can promote street law in our country?
Okay, no, it's fine. But I thought maybe before we go there, I don't know, what about those questions that the viewers have asked? The 2 questions. What about them? What is going to happen?
The previous question was asked to Ntsako. Okay, so the first one was Clonimo Fogeng. She had a family, So Ntsako had already. So it's just we don't want to spend the rest of the recording.
Okay, no, okay. No, I understand.
Revisit the same questions. All right.
Sure. Okay. No, you know what I can tell you about the street law project is that before, I don't know, there was a street law project during 1999, 2000. I was still in high school when the street law students came to our high school to introduce the street law project to us. But then it was like a project which taught young people or the community. The intention, when I understood it at that particular time, was to teach people on the various aspects of the law, what happens when a person is arrested, and how must the police treat you when you're arrested, all those sort of things. So sometimes they will ask you problematic questions, sometimes we'll engage in debates with other students. They, in fact, organized some moot courts whereby schools competed in those particular courts. And I remember one of the questions there in the moot court question was one woman who was infected with HIV by this other particular guy. Then the question was the charge, whether this particular person must be charged with murder or attempted murder or infecting this particular person with the disease intentional. Yeah, those were these challenging questions about the street law project. And I think even that particular time, it is the project that encouraged me, in fact, to do law, because it gave me a broader perspective of what law is about. Yeah, so I think it is very important for the community to engage in those particular things.
I agree with you. I actually think it's very important for everyone in our communities to be able to engage with the law.
Sure.
Over the last 5-7 years, there's been a movement to make law more accessible. So it's like simple legal language where we move away from legalese and we move more
Sure.
into a system where we're able to write, we're able to communicate the law much more clearly. Mbewu has engaged over the last year in street law projects, for example, the National Credit Act, where we went to Fort Lewis and Pretoria, engage in the community, encouraging them to bring their credit agreements, encouraging them to bring their contract. And we were able to engage with them and tell them what their rights are. I mean, most of the street law manuals don't have access to what we call the National Credit Act. And so, or they don't divulge issues around the National Credit Act. And so that process helped us to engage with young people. So, Vincent, just in the last few minutes that we have before we go offline, would you encourage law students, would you encourage candidate attorneys like Ntsako, and would you encourage practicing attorneys like yourself to engage in street law?
Yes, I would encourage both young people, students, law students, candidate attorneys, and even attorneys to engage in street law projects, because it is the project that assists mainly. If you can check, the access to law in South Africa, it's only mostly the white people, they've got access to law or legal assistance. And our own black people, they don't have access to those particular facilities because of financial constraints. And sometimes you find that your financial standing does not allow you to access legal aid assistance. And if it doesn't allow you to get legal aid assistance because of their grading or their evaluations that they have there, then you can't even afford a private lawyer. Then it becomes a problem. But if it is through a street law project whereby lawyers or students, law students or candidate attorneys volunteer the services, I think it will be great.
Wow, yes. But it's an interesting perspective that you have from what Ntsako was able to give us. I really think we should carry this conversation forward, because access to the courts and access to justice is a big thing in this country. We feel that people who have money are able to benefit more from the law than people who don't. So what I'm going to put to you and put to anyone else who is watching this broadcast live right now, if you have any legal practitioner, someone from the Justice Department, encourage them to join us in one of these soapbox, so we can really untangle the subject and the topic of street law. So we can be able to break it down so that even an ordinary South African who is going to be watching this recording and going to be watching this broadcast is able to benefit from the discussion that we have. I think, Vincent, we got you on the call much later on. I would have loved to hear what your viewpoint is, countering Ntsako, who actually thinks very differently to how you think. I think that, I think we should leave it there for now. But to everyone who is watching us, this is the second Mbewu Soapbox on the discussion, making street law work. We would definitely love to carry this conversation forward, to have more people who are going to be involved in this debate, to have a dynamic and fruitful discussion with legal practitioners about how to make law more approachable and how to make law more accessible. Section 34 of our Constitution promises that we all have access to justice. So hopefully you can join us next time as we divulge and break down the concept of making street law work. So Vincent Seloane, thank you so much. He is the Managing Director of Vincent Seloane Attorneys. I am Ntsako Seloane, the Executive Director of Mbewu. And to everyone who is watching us live right now, thank you so much for engaging with us. If you have any suggestions on topics that you would like us to discuss on this live broadcast, definitely send us an email at mbewuorg@gmail.com. You can tweet us at Mbewu.org on Twitter. You can also email me personally to send your suggestions. My email is tepo, T-S-H-E-P-O, @mbewuorg.co.za. To everyone watching us live from YouTube, you have the pleasure of watching us even more. Continue to increase the views on YouTube at this very link. Vincent, Seloane, thank you so much. Do you have any last words that you would like to give to anyone watching us before we break off?
Nothing much. I'll just wait for the second invite. And in fact, it was very interesting topic, and I really enjoyed the interview. Thank you very much.
All right. To everyone, this is the second Mbewu dialogue, Mbewu Soapbox. We're hoping to get this movement going really well. Thank you so much for watching. This is Tepo Seloane signing out for the second Mbewu Soapbox. Goodbye.
Bye.